Welcome to the Georgetown Finance and Advisory Committee meeting of April 4th. I'd like to open the meeting by introducing the members at the table. There's Wayne Snow, Sheila Ruth, myself, Ed Doby, Matt Newhall, Eric Burton, and the Town Administrator, Mike Farrell. Before we get started today, I would like to ask the Selectman Doug Dawes to take us in for a moment of silence. I'm sure a lot of people have heard this. The chairman of the Selectmen's mother died suddenly, and our hearts and prayers go out to the family. And also there was another tragic death in town, and young man and young family. The man was taken away from us, and I'd like to also recognize that as well. Doug, if you would, please.
Lord God, we come to you. We thank you for the many blessings that you bestow on us as a community. And Lord, at the same time, we all know that life is a circle. We're here and then we're gone. And we are remembering the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Joe Bonavita. His mother passed away. And then young Ryan Atherton passed away, Father. We ask you to keep these families covered in your peace and in your blessings, and help them get through this period of grieving. Amen.
Amen.
We have a busy agenda this evening, and I would like to start with someone holding up their hands. Oh, just, I thought we were already started. We have a busy agenda this evening. I think that we're going to go in the order of the least controversial first, and then work our way down. So, as a board, what I'd like to do is we have to vote on the STM 18-03 school security upgrades, taking the amount of $88,846 from the capital fund.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
The Board of Selectmen have to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Oh, it's okay. I hereby open the meeting of the Board of Selectmen, the joint meeting, the Finance Advisory Committee.
Thank you. So we'll start with STM 18-03, school security upgrades to the amount of $88,846 from the capital fund. I'd like to hear a motion to vote recommendation.
I'll make a motion that we take $88,846.
$88,846.
$46 out of the capital fund for town meeting for the school security project.
Do I hear a second? Okay. Discussion? Questions? Any discussion or questions in the audience? Okay, then I call it for a vote. All in favor of recommending the transfer $88,846 from the capital fund towards STM 18-03 school security upgrades? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Now we're moving to more controversial subjects. ATM 18-21, School Department Auditorium Curtain, $18,950 to be taken from free cash. Do I hear a motion to recommend?
I'll make a motion.
Anyone want a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. In terms of discussion,
There was a question last week that we were going to ask the chief about whether or not there was some issue as far as whether or not the fire hazard
yeah.
of the curtain. You know, since
right,
you're here,
and
fire
if you
chief.
just will bear with me for a second. The counterpoint to that, and the reason that we held that in abeyance until this week, is because obviously we're looking for every penny and dime that we can find under the cushions. And we were hoping that that would be something that we could push back till the fall. Now, sir, you can tell me that I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, the curtain's has a fire rated sticker on it, so it's been treated. I looked at the curtain, last week at the school. It does have a few holes in it, and it is fraying on the bottom. Can we get away with it for 6 months? Yeah, but it's not something I would put off a year. I think it needs to be addressed in the fall. Cause the other thing too is we're gonna have to contact the manufacturer and find out how long the fire rating is good for.
Right.
We don't, and I don't know if it's, you know, what the cleaning schedule is, you know, as far as when you look at, you know, does it need to be cleaned once a year? Does it need to be re-dipped every 5 years? So, and speaking with the principal, he said it's been there for 15 years, as long as he's been there. And I know speaking with Mike, the curtain's 21 years old. So that's something that needs to be addressed. And here's the other thing too. You're going into the summertime, so going to the fall, you know, it can be addressed in the fall, but it has to be addressed in the
But
fall.
that was our feeling,
Yep,
because obviously we're cognizant of safety, that's
Yep.
primary and foremost in our minds.
mhm,
But also is if we can reallocate as best as we can to cover short-term needs,
Yep.
then that would mean that the curtain, as far as we were concerned, would move up to a priority item.
because once we go through the school during the summertime to do the annual fire code inspection, at that point it would be cited, so then it would have to be addressed. So if we can address it in the fall, make it a priority and get it done.
How does everyone feel about that? Carol?
I think we can do that,
Okay.
as long as you're committing to doing it in the fall. I think we can commit to that.
Well, again, we're as interested and as
I know.
concerned in safety as anyone.
As long as it's not a current safety issue, then.
Right.
then-
Okay, so then, we still need to vote recommendation, even if it's a negative. So,
He could amend his amendment to postpone to the fall. Go ahead, do it. We'll just vote it down now, and everybody that's sitting here knows we're coming back in the fall.
yeah,
So vote back. Okay.
so we'll take a vote on it now. Okay, the vote is to approve recommendation for replacement of the curtain out of the free cash as of right now, and that would be transferring ATM 18-21 School Department Auditorium curtain for the amount of $18,950. And that would be a recommendation for replacing it. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. And again, that will be first priority in the fall. Mike, do you have a direction you'd like to go next?
I think our biggest question is, how are we going to fund the SRO in FY '19? That's, that's,
Let me ask you a question to at least get a starting point. As of right now, we'd have a very difficult time coming up with that money as things stand.
yeah, that's not without blowing up the budget, which is already $93,000 short.
And in order to cover that, we'd have to take it from somewhere else, since we're capped in terms of how much we've raised this year.
Well, there's no good area to take it from. This is a recurring expenditure, so you don't want to take it out of, free cash would not be best practices. It doesn't qualify as a capital expenditure. We just spent all but $16,000 of the capital fund.
And it's not a capital expenditure anyway.
Correct. So, we need you know, it needs to come from, in my estimation, it needs to come from tax dollars from
So
the budget.
in other words, an override has to be considered.
Well, that's above my pay grade, but that would be one of the options.
As difficult as it is, we have to look at all the options if we want to be able to do this. And right now, we're not looking at any surplus revenue that we can move without hurting somebody's budget. And unfortunately, you know the budget we'd all go after. And I would prefer not to do that. This is why we wanted to meet with the selectmen, because we, at this point, we have reached, and we'll open it up to discussion with everyone. But we need to at least have a discussion on it and look for the leadership from the Board of Selectmen.
Mr. Chairman, so I have a question. So the last override that we did, that was a school budget, school operating override. So that was done, what, 6, 7 years ago?
2012.
In 2012? Okay, so about 6 years ago. Is it worth going to take a look at, and I know you don't wanna hurt the schools, and neither do I. However, if the school budget's over a 4% increase for this year, maybe it makes sense to look at the operational override that's 6 years old now and incorporate, you know, some of the things that they're asking for in the regular budget and funding those long-term through boosting up, adding additional dollars to the existing override. So basically amending that override, if that's allowed. From maneuvering, it'd be a separate override.
My only concern, and again, everyone is free to add anything. My only concern is, it's a little late to start doing that now.
Well, that's right. I don't think we can even accomplish an override between now and you know, no matter what.
Well, we may be able to accomplish an override, a small override for the SRO, but certainly there's a lot that would go into putting together an override for the operational budget, and quite frankly, I don't think it would be fair to the taxpayers just to dump that on them without any type of warning.
Right. Well, I mean, the SRO thing too. I mean,
The
it's both
SRO,
ways.
but, forgive me, the SRO is something that the supposedly, and I have no reason to doubt it, that the townspeople want.
That's correct.
And by putting it in the form of an override, they make the decision whether they want it or not. Sir?
If I could, yeah, I agree. I mean, we talked to the town assessor, and his estimation for $100,000, an average home of 427,000, I think it was, Mike, is an increase of $35 a year if we did the $100,000. I think to your point, that townspeople had asked for us to do this, and I think the townspeople would support us on that. I wouldn't be in favor of adding anything to it. I would just want to do strictly for that SRO position.
And, you know, in this day and age, I don't think there's a person in this room that's against the SRO conceptually.
Sure.
And the only issue we have is how we pay for it. Please state your name.
Against Gary Fowler, Board of Selectmen.
Is that your name, against? Mine is no.
That's his nickname.
My name is no.
Well, you said you didn't think there was anybody, and I raised my hand for that reason.
Okay.
So getting back to the
Noted.
point, I mean, if, and this is a big what if, right? Hypothetically, if we had said, and I know that the school budget's different than the rest of the budgets. They have mandated things that that are out of their control.
That's correct.
Right. The question I would have, how much growth is in that budget above and beyond what's mandated by the state? Are you adding new teachers
No.
to this budget at
No,
all?
it's completely level services.
Level service?
The things we would have wanted to add, we did not, because we all agreed we'd make a level services budget.
Okay,
And we reduced some things and moved some things to grants
right.
to get to the 4.45, because you know, the original budget's, you know, closer to 6, right? So
Right.
that wasn't even fair to ask for, so,
Right.
you know, 4.45 is, you know, really adding nothing, David. And it's only putting, I'll be honest, we put a slight increase, like a couple of percent for technology, because we have to keep up with, you know, licenses and all that kind of stuff. And we're running a technology, 1-to-1 at the high school, we're in year 2, but we only have devices available for students who qualify for free and reduced lunch. The parents pay the
Right.
cost of that already, that isn't
Right.
even anything we've got in our budget. And, what was the other, we had a very slight increase in special education.
Right, and that's out of your control. I agree with
Right.
that. So my thought is this. I think there has to be a long-term thought process in this. I think, you know, if you go for the override for the SRO, that's great. That's forever, right?
Yep.
Will there be increases in,
Well, not necessarily.
well,
Well,
you can end
the
it. if you want.
override itself is in perpetuity.
Right.
Once
You
it's
can
there, it's
reverse it.
there.
Right, you can take it out by vote,
can
right?
reverse
You can
it, yeah.
stop it.
Yeah.
That may inflate over the years too, by the way, right? I mean, in terms of
Well,
raises.
everything
and-
inflates over the
Right,
course
so
of
how
years,
do you-
including us.
Right, so how do you account? I'm trying to go, Ed, I'm trying to go the other.
Yeah.
That would go up like the regular budget, the 2.5%, that would now become,
Okay.
that would now
okay.
become the levy that you take.
So what I think that has to happen is, I like the idea of going for the, put it to the taxpayers and let them vote. I think additional planning needs to be done and to take a look at that educational override for next year. Because we cannot sustain a 4.25% increase in the school budget over, you know, next year and the year. We're gonna be right back here doing the same thing.
And it's precisely the reason we had that meeting last year,
Right.
and we discussed what we needed to do going forward, because there is a built-in deficit year over year.
Right.
And we do have to not catch up with it, we have to get ahead of it.
Mm.
So you're talking to people that understand and agree with what you're saying.
Right.
But right now, we're in, I don't wanna say a crisis, but this is something that the town is demanding of us, and we have to do
Okay.
something.
Right. What if it gets voted down? What's the plan?
Then you and I are gonna be tap dancing on this table.
Well, not me, I'm done after May 15th. Not me,
Well, someone's gonna have to be tap dancing with me with a cup out.
yeah. All right.
Obviously, you know, we will have to figure something out. I think that,
Budgets will have to be cut.
Cut. We'll have to go through the budget.
yeah, and again, we know where we're gonna have to cut it,
Right.
because it's gonna have to be almost a 1-for-1 in order to be able to accomplish it.
Right.
Which is something that I don't think any of us wanna do.
Nobody, not including me. I mean,
But I do believe that we have to have faith in the taxpayers, that they see the bigger picture. With all due respect to Gary, I don't like tax increases either, because I'm on a fixed income. But I think that there are some things that we at least have to give the people the opportunity to tell us what they want.
Mr. Chair. if I
So,
could. Yeah, I think what's important to let the taxpayers know is that it can be reversed, just as we were talking. That this isn't a permanent increase. As all you guys know, we're working on some exciting stuff with economic development. We have a piece of land now that we own that has value to it. I think looking at the big picture and determining what the long-term growth is of the town, I think that we're in that process right now. So I think we just need a year to buy our time to figure out what's happening in terms of economic development in the town. That's what I think we need to let the taxpayers know, that it's not forever with this increase.
Do you know how many times politicians have told people that? Do you go
Well,
into
there's no
Boston-
promise,
Do you go
though.
into Boston over the bridge?
I'm not making promises, but what I'm saying is that you have to let them know that we have a plan in place, or we're having a plan that we're going to work on. If you just say, I want an override, I completely agree, right? I would say, well, you guys, you probably have the money somewhere, right? If we explain it to them, as we're doing here, we're trying to come up with a plan. I think if we explain it to them, that's gonna go a long way.
Let me just, again, voice my skepticism. It's one thing to say that it's possible, it's quite another to be able to do it. And I wouldn't want them, any of the taxpayers, thinking that I'm telling them that my plan is to help get rid of the override after 12 months. Because there's too many things that are, right now, then uncertain, let me put it that way.
No, I completely agree. You don't wanna promise them anything, but you do wanna let them know that
It
you have a
is
plan.
possible,
a
and we
plan to
will try
review.
to do that.
Absolutely.
Wayne, I'm sorry.
Well, an SRR override, I understand, that is a Band-Aid, gentlemen. It is a Band-Aid. It's not gonna stick for very long. Okay? I'd support it, you know, that's something we all know we have to have. But back to your long-term future, economic development, we need more than a year. You need a 3-year, 4-year, put-together budget of all the town's problems, and there's a list that can go on. We could be here all night to take an override to the town for that. If you're gonna do that next year, you better start next week. Because you even if you started next week, I can guarantee you you'll be there 10 days before town meeting and you won't be prepared. Because right now, we're not prepared. We're talking about $100,000. We're still 90 in the hole, and I haven't got a clue what's next coming up.
It's a surprise.
It's a surprise.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I mean,
Well, not only
there's-
that, but there's
there's-
the equal
you've
pay.
got to step up to the plate,
Yes.
and you've got to get this
That's
done.
a surprise.
So, I mean, there's, which is the not so,
Sorry, wanted to,
Yeah.
excuse me, Steve?
so, I mean, there's the not so much a surprise, there's the equal pay that's gonna be coming up.
That's right.
And then there's other not so much surprises that are also coming down the pipeline that we don't necessarily know about besides the equal pay. So I mean, there's the SRO, but then there's these other things that are gonna come up that are coming down along the way that we can't necessarily say that, I mean, as far as I can see, the things that that we know about are probably about $500,000 that we can
Close
see in
to.
the foreseeable future that we're gonna have to come up with money for. That's $500,000 that this town has to find. And I will say regarding the SRO, I actually had voiced to you, or I think it was over the weekend, that I am opposed to an override. And I will tell you, my opinion has changed, and it changed this morning. Because as I dropped my son off this morning at school, and I mentioned to him that he was going to be having the ALICE training at school today, we had a nice little discussion when I dropped him off. And, you know, it's one of those things where you realize just how absolutely important it is for them, because he was, as this conversation progressed, you know, he sat there and he was like, well, I'm just gonna run out of the building. And I said, no, you can't just run out of the building. And then I had to explain to him that he had to listen to the new training that needed to happen and the reasons why, because of the last school shooting, as we all know, that when they all ran out of the building, what happened. And so, you know, that expertise we need those police officers in that school. And we need them in both places. And you know, I was against the override and trying to find other ways, but if an override is what needs to happen, then an extra $25 or $35 or whatever it needs, then I actually don't enjoy paying my taxes, and I'm very sort of against having to increase taxes all the time. I think there is a lot of belt tightening that can happen, but if that's what needs to happen, then that's what we need to do. And to keep our kids safe. And if it means $25 or $35, then unfortunately your fixed income, especially mine, as tight as it is, you know, I struggle to stay in town. I chose this town for a reason, and I struggle to keep my son in the school system, especially. And I think it's important to have that SRO here. And if that's what needs to happen, then that's what we need to do. That's my opinion. So that's where I stand on that.
Well said. Steve, or, go ahead.
Just, I want a point of order and an understanding of how overrides work. it would only be, if I remember from the past override, it only gets designated for that, for the year of the override. Am I correct,
Yes.
That's
Mike?
correct.
The
Yes.
following year, it's basically in the general
Mhm.
budget, and it can be spent
And that-
anyway.
And, well,
that-
that was the idea behind it, basically, because once the SRO is up and running, that's part of the police budget
Yes,
going forward, so you needed a revenue stream to offset that cost.
yes, and so the plan would be for it to continue, but I mean, there's nothing there is nothing that says that it must continue, that's where I'm going, I mean,
Well,
if
in
you saw
terms
a
of the
need.
override itself, no, the override can be voted away.
No, what I mean is-
Once the school resource officer's been assigned, next year we look at the budget, we have to make a cut, we can cut him, but that 108,000 doesn't come off.
I just want that to be
That's-
understood by
that is a-
everybody.
That is
that's-
a true statement, yes. Thank you for the clarification.
It's fine, yeah.
Sorry.
I might also suggest, do you wanna limit it to funding the school resource, or do you wanna just say for a police officer position?
I think, to be honest with you, I think that we use it as a police officer and then let the professional police department
Right.
decide how that
Absolutely.
works.
Yes,
Particularly since the SRO is, what, a 6-month position? In terms of 9 months, and then, you know,
And then in the summertime, we're going
Right.
to put them back on patrol and try to alleviate some of the scheduling issues that we have. Putting both of them back on the regular 4 and 2 schedule to try to minimize the use of our reserve officers and increase our presence during the summer. And then put them back effective September 1st
the,
in that SRO position.
the only thing that I would ask in terms of, as a question, if I was looking at an override, which is more compelling to the taxpayer, the SRO position or the police officer position? I mean, if you're going to be selling it to the taxpayers.
I would say SRO. In essence, the police officer who's being deployed as an SRO is an officer being hired for the police department. And I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But it has to be understood as that, because the SRO isn't under the directive of the school department, they're under the directive of the police department. And the chief can utilize that person in any position he wants him to be. So,
Then, if you don't mind, I would ask the chief, your thoughts on that.
Well, I think the assignment that officer, this added officer to our department is currently being ranked as a school resource officer. There's no other designation. They're a full-time police officer, they're academy trained. They fall under the collective bargaining agreement under the patrolman. And if there was any type of crisis, budget crisis, so to speak, and we had to remove the SRO from the school and put them on patrol, we would have to be, we would be able to do that. It's an assignment.
And it's your assignment,
That's
it's not
correct.
the schools, it's not
No,
selectmen's, it's not anyone but yours.
right.
the police chief, yes.
Right.
May I suggest wording
Certainly.
that says police officer to be assigned as for the
Right.
school year to make it more
And that-
palatable?
Yes, I think that covers it, although the
Or
gentleman,
are
the
we,
sitting.
No, you can't
We
take
can't do that?
that away from the
Okay.
chief.
Yeah.
I'm just saying make it more palatable to people, but
A
that's
police,
not.
an SRO is a police officer.
Right.
No, I know, but I'm just saying,
I
if
think
people
we're-
know the purpose of it, it may,
Well,
I think they need to know
I would think they
it's
know.
an SRO, and understand that it's a cop.
right.
Well, if we went before town meeting, that would come out anyway.
Yes.
Right.
I
Does
think,
this require a
the wordage
ballot
is,
vote, though?
Excuse me?
It does.
the wordage is, you're getting,
Well, I don't wanna go any deeper in the
I know.
woods on that, but the idea is that
we know what it's
it's,
for.
we are not gonna be
Is it
wording it
school
anyway.
resource officer with the,
I just leave it.
The whole thing is that,
The
excuse me
lawyer.
just for a moment. Whatever we do, we have to do it quickly,
Yes,
because when do the warrants
I'll
go?
let
to
the lawyer
the
tell you
printer?
guys what to do.
This one has to, this is a ballot vote, as it was just
Right.
mentioned, and the language has to be given to
The
the
town council,
town clerk
okay?
Tuesday, end of business.
That's the reason.
So
Well, doesn't
selectmen can have a meeting on Monday night. They have to,
Aren't they in a meeting now?
yeah, but I don't know if they're willing to vote on anything tonight, not having a full board here. But they're eventually have to vote to get it on the ballot and the warrant,
So just
It's gonna have to go to legal counsel.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what I was
So
just
we
gonna say,
already
yeah.
but the language, I don't think it can be specific
That's the
to
language.
say SRO. It is right here.
Yeah.
That's from legal.
What's the language here, Mike? Oh,
Shall we,
okay.
That one small sentence.
No, you can put school resource officer.
Yeah, that's what I was, yeah.
I think it might have been presented to legal
Yeah,
counsel.
is that, yeah, did they come back and say you can't be specific, like a sergeant?
Purposes of
lieutenant?
funding a school
Gentlemen,
resource
gentlemen,
officer.
gentlemen, if I
counsel.
may, I don't wanna talk about how many angels dance on the head of a pin. This is something we've gotta address head on and come up with a plan to get this all done. This verbiage here that's been approved by town council,
We're good.
we're looking for your leadership, not ours, to take us where we need to go on this.
Do you guys wanna vote?
Council specified, recommended we use SRO language.
Do you have a ATM number for it?
That is.
No, just can,
So can you give me one, so I can make a
Make a
motion?
motion.
What,
Give them 5 minutes.
well,
Just give us
you
a
need
second.
5 minutes to discuss it yourselves?
No, we can make a motion and discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just give me a,
well,
ATM
I'll have to go,
anybody have a warrant in front of them? One warrant?
no, I have, it's downstairs. I'll be right back.
Can you just say
No,
ATM
all right, so
number
Mr.
to be
Chairman-
determined?
Should we take a,
You could say ATM 50.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we include on the warrant with a warrant article number to be determined later, the following: shall the town of Georgetown be allowed to assess an additional $108,000 in real estate and personal property taxes for the purpose of funding a school resource officer within the police department for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Oh,
Go ahead, Gary. Is this covering the ballot question? Do we need it with, this will cover the warrant. This goes on the warrant. Typically, these things go on the warrant as in the beginning, as a ballot question, I thought.
That's what it says.
This,
The ballot
this is the ballot language.
So it maybe should it, does it still need, as David did,
More language. It's the spirit of the vote.
No, we,
okay.
and it's gonna be, it's really
I
depending
think you may
upon
wanna
the,
just mention ballot question, that this is to be a ballot question. This isn't just a town warrant article. This is to be a ballot question. And you may want that in your motion.
Okay,
That's
so
what
put
I'm-
it as an article to be on the warrant and a ballot question. Doug, you okay with that for the second?
yeah,
It's fine. So just, and you know what the spirit of it
just
is,
to,
right?
just to
Legal
clarify,
counsel will
yeah.
come up with the actual wording, additional wording or legalese here.
What my concern, it's really not that big a concern, but my concern by using school resource officer position kind of handcuffs, in my mind, the chief. And I don't know,
In what way?
was it presented to town council as we wanted to do this for a school resource officer, or just to hire another police officer?
How does that handcuff?
Just ask Mike.
Oh, you're
It
asking Mike, I
was,
thought you said.
well, I started off by saying we would like language for a school resource officer position for the police department. And we had a discussion of how it would best play for the voters. And legal counsel who has done these with other towns, suggested that we say specifically a resource officer. So it didn't end up being a beat cop and not in the school.
But
For the
then I would
first
say
year.
we're all in agreement that the chief is, at his pleasure, can utilize that
Well,
person.
it's here, right in writing, it says, if I'm
But
not,
that wasn't part of the,
it says
part
after
of
the
the
first
motion.
year, the town is not limited to,
right.
in terms of purposes, but for which it can expedite the funds. As the vote ultimately results in an increase to the town's levy limit without any permanent restriction or purposes for which the funds may be spent after year one. So we would be handcuffing the chief for year one, so that would be the next budget cycle. He would have to have an SRO, 2 SROs basically, or
Right.
at least one.
Right. Well, I just
For
want
1
to
year.
make sure that
Right.
we all understand
Yeah.
Well, he's not
that
required
it's
to
the
have
chief's
either.
prerogative how,
Right,
what the deployment of that officer
Yeah.
is.
right.
Can I
That's
ask, yeah, I just want to ask the chief a question if I could, Mr. Chair.
Certainly.
So,
It's your meeting.
do you see any,
You got Sharon.
do you see that after a year or two that you wouldn't, the need for an SRO?
Absolutely not. I mean, that's that's the intended purpose, and I think, for clarification too, with the police budget, I think I've done the last 11 police budgets, and every year I'd come to this committee, the advisory committee, and whether it's for a transfer, whether I use that transfer or not, I've shown that consistently over time, if I don't have a need for those funds, they come back to the town. The funds are never brought back to zero. If I ask for the money and I need it, I use it, and if I don't use it, I've given it back. Thousands of dollars, actually, I think the record will reflect that. So, I've always believed in truth in budgeting, and that's the purpose. The adage for me to say that, if you receive funding, you better use it because they'll never give it to you again. I actually have the opposite opinion on that. I request funding, I use it, and whatever is left over, I give it back if I don't need it.
That's great. That's what I thought you'd said. So, good, good. Okay. Yeah, I think I just wanted to let everyone know that, I mean, I personally am not in favor of overrides for operating budgets. Believe me, and I've said it before at selectmen meetings, but I think for this particular purpose, because of the hole that we're in the town, I think we need to do this, so. you
Mr.
guys-
Chair, if I
yeah,
may.
Go ahead.
The reason we're doing this is because of what's taking place in our culture. This is more than just an operational budget override. We have to ensure that the buildings in our community, the public buildings in our community, offer some degree of security for all the occupants. It doesn't matter, it doesn't mean just for kids, it means for everybody that's in the building, from the youngest person to the oldest person. And this is something that, because our culture has gone down this slope, this is a forced thing to do. I am not in favor of overrides of any type, but this is a forced thing that we need to do to offer the best security we can to the public buildings in this community. So that's why I would, that's why I seconded this.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
3-1.
Let it be said that we're all trying to protect the taxpayers every year, not just from mayhem and things like that, but none of us want to increase the tax burden on any of the citizens in the town.
We need to I'll make a motion that we recommend the funding of the SRO officer for the school on the override of the selectmen.
Do I hear a second?
Second?
Any more discussion from the finance committee? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
Okay.
I don't have that on my piece of paper here. We'll make a note.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, do you need us for
No.
future things?
Boy,
But I would say this,
You
I would
sure?
say this, that without you coming here tonight and making this decision, and it's a hard decision, that we'd still be floundering around trying to figure out how to do this. Your decisiveness has really helped us tonight. and we appreciate it.
You guys do a great job too.
Yeah, I
have
appreciate
the
you
funding,
guys
too.
working with us and giving advice in terms of, the options that we have, so.
We're all in it for the same
We
thing.
are.
You have to stay here for the rest of
All
the
right, make a
night.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Have a good night, thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Great job, guys. Thanks.
thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike, there's one thing that I do wanna bring up first. Last week, we, took a vote on recommendation of ATM 1819, the school department pickup for $57,000. That was not approved unanimously. We are not opening discussion on that tonight. We see the need for the service, but we, again, want to hold that in abeyance till we get everything else straightened out. We want to make sure we have the school security upgrades paid for. We want to make sure we've got the SRO in place. And then we'll do the curtain and we'll discuss the truck. And plus, I think, Mike, if I'm not mistaken, somebody mentioned that there might be some used equipment around you could potentially.
We talked about it today a little bit. The reason I wrote the letter is because I watched your last meeting and it seemed like you didn't have all the correct information about
We had none.
how much we use the truck
We had none.
and
And
it's not usable anymore at field inspections.
Right. But the problem for us is that,
And I get that security and money is tight.
Right.
I'm not, asking you to find the money. I just wanted to make sure
no,
you knew
and
the
I
need.
want you to understand, we don't just pick out things to arbitrarily say no to.
No,
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Should we move on, Mike? Next issue?
Yeah. Well, Sheila brought up the next biggest issue is, how do we, take care of the Equal Pay Act adjustments. Been working on it with the subcommittee. We haven't been
Excuse
able.
me, does everyone know what Mike is talking about? Okay. Do you think maybe for the people at home, we should preface it with an explanation?
Sure.
The state legislature authorized a Massachusetts Equal Pay Act at their last session in August. And they gave each, and this isn't just for municipalities, this is for all employers in the state of Massachusetts, that they're going to be held accountable for pay that is gender bias in particular, but it's in particular gender bias, but also for everyone. And what they said was the employers have until July 1 to get their act together as far as this is concerned. And in order to show that you've got your act together, you have to do a study based on the guidance that finally came out from the Attorney General's office on March 1st. That was holding us up because we had done a wage and salary classification study where we looked at external equity and internal equity. The external equity piece shows that we are so out of whack with the rest of municipalities that it would take, a lot of money and time to get us caught up. So the subcommittee realized that and said, let's just look at the internal equity piece, because what's going to happen July 1, anybody, if we haven't done this study and started correcting any gender bias in our pay scales, we, the town, would be subject to lawsuits from those employees that were being not paid equally as their male counterparts. So, as I said, the Attorney General's office came out with a guidance document. It was about 50 pages long, but they also provided a tool. It was a series of 3 spreadsheets, and they made it very easy. I just had to plug in this didn't, to my knowledge, doesn't affect, let's put it this way, I did not include the non-union school personnel in it. I'll let you guys do that one. So we have about 40 non-union personnel on the town side. Their names, gender, pay amounts, hours worked, that all goes into the master spreadsheet. And then there's an analysis spreadsheet based on that, and it gives you ratios of male to female differences in specific, not everybody across the board, but in jobs that are equal in requirements, maybe not the same job, but if based on skills necessary, education necessary, things like that. And it then gave a ratio of the male to female in that group, and then it also breaks it out for the individuals within that group. Long story short, it indicated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Out of those approximately 40 employees, 11 were not equally paid. Some a lot more than others. But we had, but if you add all the adjustments necessary to erase that gender bias, and there are some male employees. These aren't all female employees. There's a few, and we have a preponderance of female employees. We just do. But of those 11, to get everybody in a satisfactory ratio with their male and group counterparts, we need to adjust salaries to the tune of about, well, not about, $61,365. Now,
And that's not just one time, that's one time.
That's one time.
Right.
So,
But then it'll be in the budget from thereafter, at that higher rate.
right.
I just
And then
wanna
you
make
have
that
to,
clear for
yeah.
everybody.
And then we need to keep it, we can't fall back.
Right.
Now, the law allows each employee, each employer to show a good faith effort in getting all these adjustments made over a 3-year period, up to 3 years. So you can do it in 1 year, you can do, and I laid out basically these options. If we were to,
Do you have copies? Do you have this?
We're involved, I don't know if Mike's got enough to pass around,
Yeah.
it would be nice.
we can do it all in one huge bite and adjust everybody in 1 year. We can, and then we can do any permutation over the next following years. You can front end load it, you can back end load it. You can do a 50-50.
So we're looking at, right now, we're looking at 4 options. The first option is 100% at $61,365.17. Option 2 is 3 years. First year, $30,682.59, which is 50%. The next year, 25%, $15,341.29. Year 3, $15,341.29. Option 3, 33, 33, and 33. Over 3 years, each year would be $20,250.51. Option 4 is 50-50, $30,682.59, and the same the second year.
Yeah, the only option is we can't do nothing.
Right.
We have to do something. Now, that option number 1, I favor that. And the reason why I can say that is, although I have, and I think I mentioned this to this board, I have $75,000 in the administration budget that was going to be used to fund a joint maintenance department with the school. We've been trying to do this for years and years and years. And it's not that I don't want to do it, it's a question of priorities. Because if I take money out of that line item, any amount, I'm not going to be able to do it this year. If I take 25 out, I need $75,000 to make this work with the school department.
So how, you would just transfer the 75 from the administrative budget line item that it's in and put it into what?
The different department personnel lines.
Individually?
Where is that, Mike?
General Government Administration
Under
Finance?
Yeah, general government, you'll have to look on the individual admin tab in the back. You're going way back.
Admin Finance,
Yeah,
tab 5?
is that where it is? Yep, if you look under,
5300?
Is that under professional and technical?
It is, I'll have to plug my computer in.
The only place that could be is in 5290 or 5300.
Looks like 5300, no?
Looks like
It's-
5290.
It's not in either one of those. That,
Okay.
this page didn't get updated.
Okay.
The other lines under expenses got updated. I can, basically that, let me pull it up on my computer.
I got some fancy note written to the 95,000.
Yeah.
that I can't read.
That's very helpful.
That was, I wrote it down, now I can't read it.
I've got two separate pages in my budget book, and this, they look very similar, but the numbers down the bottom are about the figure, about $90,000 difference. One's gonna have something more than the other.
Yeah, it's. We made the changes. Hold on, I'm not connected. Okay, here we are. Let me put this on the TV screen.
Excuse me.
They're all the same numbers.
Sorry for the technical delay here. Here it is.
Three different pages.
Okay, I've been updating the summaries, I haven't been updating the individual department tabs. So originally, the 52, yeah, it was in 52, 70, it was under rentals and leases, it was purchase of services. That figure was $75,000 more than the 136.
Okay, so we'd be taking it from 5270, then you'd be redistributing it.
Yeah, and basically what I did was move it up. I just moved it up into personal services. If you see that, I think that used to be 160 change.
Yep.
It's now 221, 637.
Okay, now, we wouldn't necessarily have to take any action on that individually. We would just have to approve the budget as a whole as it was submitted.
Yeah, because actually the total amount of the deficit is dropping by $13,000. Because I'm only using 61 of that 75.
Mike, I have, all right.
Can I ask a question? It's gonna be a simple question with probably a complicated answer, but outside of the legal requirement to do it, and the coming up with how to come up with the money, why, again, it seems much more simple than I think you're gonna give me an answer. Why are we in that situation where someone who is doing an equal job to someone else and making $17,000 less?
Because we, just like every other entity on the planet, has found it easier to underpay women than men.
I don't think that's the real reason. I think what happens is every city, municipality, any business values the performance and the job description or function of the person their own way, for their own reasons. And if you look at a bunch of towns around us, you will see that a position is rated at this, another may be rated at this, and in some instances, we're right in the middle. So it all depends.
I guess that may be where it becomes much more complicated, because you talked about they're not exactly the same positions that we're weighing. So when we go out put a job up for bid, or whatever, however you do it, you say, okay, this job's a $15 an hour job, and this job's a $20 an hour job, because in our minds, they're different. But in this system, they may not be, and that's where we might be getting this issue. Or do we have two positions open up at the same time, and one we're offering for 15 and one 20, and they're the same job?
Some positions have been traditionally female, like all the council on aging positions. Now, the council on aging director is a department head with probably more clients than, the only one that has more clients is the police and fire department, because everybody in town is their client. They do need special skills and training, but the planning board, the conservation commission, you name it. Well, those two in particular, the board of assessors, they get paid $40,000 a year more than the council on aging.
But again, I am not going to agree with the fact that it was something that was intentional, ongoing in the town. The town was basically paying for what they could get away with anybody, whether it was male or female. I mean, we have laborers that work for the highway department that are probably they weren't making as much as people in surrounding towns. I don't want
I know, we're not
appear-
going, but we're not going external here, we're staying internal.
No, I understand, but I just don't want to give people the impression that this was something that was intentional.
We're not the only one that does it. No, everybody does it. Everybody
So
does it.
you say the council on aging in particular.
Yeah.
If we look at another community, the percentage of what they make relative to what another position in town makes is comparable to what we are?
No,
No, it is not.
they're way underpaid.
Okay.
The library is another key example of that.
So we did this to ourselves, basically. This is,
Yeah. And-
Time did this to us,
Yeah,
done, yeah.
because this isn't the first year the salaries have come up. Wage studies have been done, and as I can recall, probably 2 years ago,
2010,
2010, there was a wage study done, and it came across our table about a week before we had to close, and it was $75,000. We all looked at it, said, we haven't got $75,000, pushed it away, and did nothing, so.
but now
Now we
we need
have no choice.
now we need 175,000.
And the other issue is it's not just giving people additional monies. Now what you're doing is you've created a process where if you hire someone, you know where they fit in the hierarchy. And there is a range of how they get paid. So it's brought stability out of chaos, I would say.
Well, I agree. I just don't know why we're ever, common sense to me would have said this should have made sense for us in the first place.
Well, we don't want somebody sitting here 10 years from now in your position saying the same thing about what we decided not to
I
do.
can guarantee you whatever I did today is gonna be questioned tomorrow.
Yeah.
I question it now.
Three of those 11 positions are council on aging positions, and they're the highest deficit. And like I said, prior to coming here, I was a wage and salary consultant, and I did this all over the regular, all over the state of Massachusetts, and there wasn't one town that undervalued their council on aging, even though they require a master's degree for the director, and nobody, except maybe, I don't know of any towns that require a master's degree for any position. They always say bachelor's, minimum bachelor's, master's preferred, but they say minimum bachelor's because they don't want to pay for the master's. They hope they get it for free.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
they've been requiring masters and not paying for it when it comes to council on aging.
I was on the subcommittee that looked at this, and as Mike can attest, I was one of the ones that was against doing this until you start reading what has to be done and start comparing. I mean, we don't have a choice.
No, I don't, I just don't understand why we didn't do this before, so.
Well,
But
it's-
again, you can't look back and
It's
say.
as Wayne says,
Yeah.
everybody that didn't have the money kicked the can down the road.
Yeah, and we caught up with the can. All right,
So-
can we-
I'm sorry, I had a,
Go
I
ahead,
didn't
Eric.
mean to cut.
no, go ahead.
Like, when I job search and go around, one of the institutions like Harvard University, they have like a salary scale system. Like, for instance, if there's a business analyst open, it's a T30, and then you gotta look up what a T30 makes, and it's
Right.
$60,000 or whatever. So is the town gonna move to a something like that? Like, oh, that position's a T50, so it doesn't matter if it's a male or female who applies for it. It's that job's gonna be $50,000. It's a T whatever, or Georgetown 60 or whatever it's gonna be. So it's, because I mean, I agree with you at the one point that somebody might be doing the same type of job in Council of Aging compared to the Conservation Department, but what if that budget can support somebody getting paid more than the Council of Aging budget? I mean, so maybe it wasn't necessarily male, female. I'm not saying it wasn't, but is there something that's going to be in a book on paper going forward so we don't run into this again saying this job is up, it's a T60 no matter if it's a male or a female?
We're heading in that direction.
Okay.
And the
The
other
last
thing,
time we did it was 2003. And when I first started here in 2009, that was the first thing I did was do a wage and classification study. I gave it to the personnel board that we had at the time, and they said, wow, this is really good. We haven't had one of these in a long time. And they looked at the cost to get everybody, which was at the time $75,000, and said, we can't afford to do this. And I said, well, I'm not telling you you have to do it all in one chunk. I know you can't afford it. So do it, do it over a period of years and get everybody up there. We started with the wage and classification study last summer, and I presented it to the selectmen with the proviso that this Equal Pay Act is coming down the pike. So, we're gonna have to pay attention to that as well. And we've made the decision, this Equal Pay Act adjustment is taking priority. And it's also gonna take the sting out of moving everybody up to market too. Because even though these positions aren't market adjustments, they're getting there. Because some of our newer hires who are department heads got hired at market because we couldn't attract anybody, or the last person who whatever the salary was of the person leaving now becomes the starting salary of the person coming in. That's not how you're supposed to do it, but that's the only way we were getting salary adjustments to meet market trends.
Mike, is in the things that came out in the last month from the Attorney General's office, is there a plan and is there something in there about what should be done every year to review this on your, so that, you're looking at it, it's looked at every year on a spreadsheet?
Well, they're saying look at it every 3 years.
3 years, but there's something,
Yeah,
there's
you
a tool to do
you
that.
just rinse and repeat. You
Yeah.
do it again.
I'm all for making sure we rinse and redo that, because we don't need another one of these.
Right.
we have a question from Gary, Mike.
Just, 'cause the selectmen are involved in this part of the subcommittee also, just to But, so I guess by what you're talking about market, that means that you didn't come up with anybody that's overpaid, huh?
Just a
Oh,
select.
yeah. There are. In the.
So how do you compare that, or how do you straighten that, anything of that out if you found some that were overpaid?
Well, technically what you do is you don't give them another raise until they hit the market.
So, if we're looking to bring some up, are we also looking to
No,
make some other adjustments?
you never,
No, the
You never
time
go
takes
down.
care of that, Gary.
What?
Time takes care of that. If you don't, if you're not rate, if you set, as Matt was saying, if you set and Eric was saying, if you set the salary range and they're at max, that's where they stay. And over time, people catch up with them.
Mike, the position that you were hoping to do, was it dual mechanical contractor?
mm-hmm.
When would that come back up? Because I'm sure you're gonna want that again.
Try again, you know, it depends on how we phase this in. If we phase it in all at once this year, then, yeah, we could probably shoot for it next year.
But that 75,000 is still accounted for next year, right? It's not like we get another 75,000 that frees up what you just, or
That's-
68,000 of it's gone.
Yeah, we get an extra 2.5% and depends on what the priority is next year.
But you're okay with pushing it off right now, I know.
You don't really have much choice.
Yeah, we've gone
No, no,
this
just
long,
wondering when it's gonna come
we've
back up.
gone this long without it. And we can't not do this, cause we're gonna get sued if we don't do it.
But at least if we have it funded, then that's one less thing we have to worry about. And then next year, obviously, I would like to believe, and I have no reason to disbelieve Steve when he says that we've got some good things coming down that's gonna increase the revenue in the tax base, and if that's the case,
And the other positive byproduct, like he said, is, you have 13,000 less in the
yes.
deficit that,
Yep.
for this year too, so.
So how do you wanna handle that one, Mike?
Well, this is, as Gary stated, this is a dual decision, but,
I know, but we're gonna be either recommending or not recommending it,
Yeah.
and then the selectmen will do what they have to do.
you know, well, let me get back to.
If I may just say this to the committee, it seems to me that we have the 4 options in how to pay for it.
Mhm.
It's been recommended by Mike that we can pay for the whole thing this year, and then have the additional 13,000 that's unassigned or unspent go towards the current deficit that we have.
The 93,000?
You can see on the screen,
The deficit is 80,262.
So it's come down
My
a
eyes
bit.
aren't that young anymore.
Okay, but that, hold on.
To do
So-
one.
Mike, that-
Basically, we're
That's
deciding
better.
which.
Oh, very good.
One.
Do we do it as two, to agree with, well, we have to pay for it, but do we just handle it in terms of what option we would like to recommend that you pursue?
I don't
What number?
I don't think we should recommend an option. I think we just recommend this be paid.
Well,
Let
that
the-
is an option.
We'll recommend which option
How,
to
the
take.
think
selectmen can pick how they wanna pay it.
It's not an option, how, or
It's
if
option
it gets
one.
paid. If it gets paid.
It's how it's paid, it's option 1. If you wanna pay it all at once. Should we make a motion, Mike, to,
Yeah, to fund the MEPA adjustments in, at 100% this year.
Matt, you wanna do the honors?
No? So, yeah, so make a motion to,
And the only doubt,
hey,
Wait,
I'll make,
new discussion.
make a motion to approve the MEP adjustments, option 1, pay of 100%, 61,365 and 17 cents.
In the fiscal year,
In the fiscal year
like-
2019.
Yep. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Now discussion.
Sorry, the only downfall I see is that we're tying ourselves for the next 3 years into that we are definitely paying the $62,000.
Yeah.
But it's all gonna catch up with us at some point
Well, it is gonna
anyway.
catch up to us, but we're tying ourselves into that instead of incrementally tying ourselves into it.
But at least we know it's paid for next year, then it's already in the budget for next year, because as Mike explained with the $75, that's reoccurring as well.
I get that, but I'm just,
The other issue is, in 3 years, or by the third year, we all might not be here, and somebody's gonna say,
We
well,
we'll be here, but we may not be on the committee.
yeah. This,
I
this,
just wanna,
I'll be on an island in USVI. You
this
can-
takes care of it, once
That's
and,
my
one and
lottery
done.
winnings.
that's my point on it, Sheila. I would like to, I don't wanna leave something undone for
Makes
somebody
sense.
that may
Okay.
be.
Yeah, I mean, I just, yeah.
Eric?
If we did the 50-50 option, then these people, whoever they are, would get half next year and then the half the year after. So
Yes.
Sheila's actually making a point, we're saving a little there. If we did the 50-50, but Mike was still nice enough to give us the 75, we're knocking the deficit down a little bit more this year.
It's not whether I give it to you, it's whether you take it or not. Yeah, you're gonna knock,
I mean, the point is a valid point. You know, I like to pay things off when I've got the money, because I don't know whether something else will come up.
But we don't have the money, we're still 80,000 deficit.
And therein, while you're on the committee, because you're a whiz with the money.
She's the auditor.
Yeah, I know,
They do pay me for something. No.
we still have 135,000 in free cash.
Let's address one issue at a
I
time.
know, but I don't particularly, back to the 50% or pay it off. I would prefer to see it paid off, because basically what we're turning the 50-50 into is, okay, just like they pass the override, the SRO goes through, we're gonna have the SRO again and another $50,000 to deal with, starting next year's budget. If we pay it now, we'll only have to deal with the SRO. And technically, as long as it's on the override, we can just put that, plug
Well,
that
look,
money
if the override passes, we'll
Yeah.
have the money for the SRO
there.
there.
Yeah.
And we'll have the money for this as well. The only thing that's being injured is the joint maintenance with the schools.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, as Mike says, that's, again, I'm not one for kicking the can down the road, but in this instance, because of extraordinary items that are coming up, we have to.
Yeah.
Any more discussion? Doug, you had a,
Well, it's just the point is that all the other options avail you the opportunity to lower whatever the deficit is this year. And that, you know, I mean, how you do it, we have to do it anyhow. And you're gonna have to come up with the money next year anyhow, because it's already in the budget, no matter what you do this year.
Yeah, I mean,
Because the law is gonna require that we continue forward.
right, but I think that one of the things that Wayne was alluding to is if you do it all in one fell swoop, then the people that are affected are going to be placated, that we've done what we said we were going to do. I think the optics are better if you just pay them and just get it done.
do these employees know all about this? I mean, is this?
Do now it's on TV.
that's-
Oh, I
no,
would
that's
think they
why
would.
there's no names here.
So it's $75,000 is what you've allocated for your other position.
That's correct.
Okay. If we pay this in full this year, we'll have about $13,000. Next year, about $75,000. The following year, about $75,000. The alternatives are to pay it half this year, where we'll have roughly $40,000. Next year, $40,000, and third year, $75,000. Or $40,000, $25,000, $25,000, or something like that, right? So
The longer you spread this out, the longer it takes me to get joint maintenance.
So that's what I'm saying, next year we'd be better off
Well, if I
It'd be
may,
tougher this year, but it'd be better next year.
let me ask a question that may or may not be worthwhile here, but if we're not going to, if we're putting off the school department pickup truck, and we're putting off the school department auditorium, can't we use that towards the deficit? Out of free cash? That,
You can,
that amounts to $75,950.
we have in the past, as a matter of fact, in 2017, we balanced the budget with 174,590 in free cash.
How much do we have in free cash?
Right now, 135,000.
Yeah.
Doesn't leave us with much for anything for the rest of the year.
Where do you come up with 135?
I took his number when he started out here with the 244,000.
Right,
I
and
took out all the things that we approved. I added back in, I got down to the 184, and I added back the, no, I got down here to the 59, the remaining balance, and I added back the two things that we postponed, the truck and the
okay.
curtain. And that's roughly 135. How's that sound, Mike?
I came up with 706
Slight
left
difference.
over.
Oh, because you got the 40,000 in the radios there.
Yeah.
They came out of reserve fund.
Moved out from the reserve fund
Oh,
over to free cash.
okay. Uh-huh.
I thought we paid, how do we pay for the SRO, the 27,000 for the SRO?
That it came out of,
Reserve fund.
yep.
Oh, I thought that came out of free cash. No.
So. the-
Well, anyway-
The police radio project, the town radio project
Yes, Mike. For clarification.
is in, we want to put that over in the reserve fund.
That's where it
That's where we
was.
had it before.
Yeah,
Is that what you
okay.
wanted?
Well, then, that brings us down to 33,000 in the reserve fund.
I thought it was 13 on here.
It says
Do
13.
you have this, Mike?
Oh, you don't,
I moved the,
you moved the 27 over to the, oh wait,
I'm working off the
let's all
one.
get on the same page here.
Oh, God, my notes are on this one.
That was last week's, this is it.
To translate.
Yeah, I'll share that.
Do we have one more?
We have to share this one.
yeah, the numbers are different.
Yeah, that's,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
so that's got this one.
Yeah. The 40,000 for the police radios is on our sheet from last week, was on reserve.
Yeah,
Can you
that's where
put
we
that
took it
up
from.
on the board there, Mike? Would that help us all?
It might, if I have it on
Come we
this
got the same date
computer.
on the damn thing.
And actually,
the
the
cylinders.
cylinders of the were over from the reserve fund as well,
Oh, because you put all the, oh, because you put
from
all the-
last week's.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if it helps whatsoever, I know it's only $12,000, but I've deferred the garage floor since 2011, and being we're crunching nickels, we can pass over that warrant article, and I'll just continue to do the temporary patch that we've been doing since then. It's 12 grand, but it's something, I mean, it's,
We were gonna take that away from you.
well, that's awfully nice that I could give it back.
But hearing about what the actual problems were, we didn't think that made any sense to push that off.
We use Flex Seal right now, the stuff you see on TV.
Yeah.
We buy cans of Flex Seal and
Okay.
kind of. And by the way, that stuff works
Seriously?
sometimes, but not all the
In
time.
Mold, isn't it a mold issue?
You pay it all
No,
now.
was it a mold issue? I
We
don't
keep
know.
it changing.
They've got an erosion issue, they've got everything in that. But again, I appreciate that,
Just the thought.
but again, when we went through it, we did consider that,
This came over
the
here.
This
low
is
hanging
option one.
fruit, but
Right.
then
This is option two.
we
Right, but they
decided
both
not
equal
to.
to 61. It's not, is this a one-time
Anybody
hit
else
though?
got any
This
money
is
that
one
want to
time.
make?
This is spread over 3 years. It's the same
You
61,000.
took all my
So
money.
you can
Anybody
either
wanna
pay
put
it
more?
one
we
time,
don't.
you can pay it half up front,
I couldn't help it.
a third, a third, a third, or
Right.
half and half.
Well, I thought
yeah.
once we did it, no matter which option we take, going forward, we have to pay that much more.
Yeah.
Gentlemen?
I don't have it
Oh,
on
not
this
funded.
computer.
Not
Okay.
Is it a feasible thing, and what would you consider to be the minimum free cash reserve that we need there?
Well, we pulled it down to 6,000 last year. There is no minimum. I mean, we can't spend it unless we have a special town meeting.
So,
If we could really get into trouble, we have the,
Reserve fund.
there's nothing left hardly in there.
tax stabilization fund.
So it is feasible, we could at least take something out to help with the deficit,
Yes.
okay? Which brings us back,
Okay, so we
we
do
still
have
have a
something
question we have to
else.
vote on.
So we do have something else besides the free cash. If we run into some sort
The
of
stab
a
fund,
real
yeah.
issue,
Yeah,
we have other funds that are available.
Yes.
All right.
Actually, I think you just made a point that I'm not sure if
I
you
have to,
intended it or
I
not,
have to
but
better understand this, Mike. So if we go 100% this year,
Yeah.
and we do the 61, we're paying 61 every year going forward if salaries don't change ever.
Right.
Because this expense is not going away.
Right.
If we spread it over 3 years, or let's just go 2 years to make it easy. Next year we pay the 30. So yeah, okay, now we got 30 going forever, and then the year after that we pay another 30. We got 30 going forever. The people who lose out, and I don't want anybody to lose out, but if the state's giving us 2 to 3 years to catch up, we should take advantage of that instead of just, if we pay it all now, we're basically adding costs to the town.
I think we were thinking about it as a one-time expense. He's right.
It's-
If
no,
you-
we agree with that. Because it's salaries we're looking at. It's
Yeah.
not a one-time capital expenditure or anything. It's something that, once we're committed to it, we're committed to it.
So if you use it as just, say it's one employee making $1, and tomorrow we have the opportunity to raise it up to $61,365, or we can give him $30,000 this year, plus another $15,000 the year after, plus another $15,000 the year after. The only person that's actually affected by it is the
Still an
employee.
adjustment that needs to be made.
That's true, because what's happening is, you save 30 next year, that, you save 30 next year, then it goes, no, it's 30, 30, 30, so it would be
Put it this way,
20,000.
If the person made $1, and so for the next 4 years,
Right,
you can
if-
either pay him $61,000 a year, or next year you can pay him $30,000, the following year you pay him $45,000,
Right.
and then on the third year you finally
You're
pay him the
paying them
61,000.
the full 60,000.
So there's
So
savings
there is-
there.
So you're saving the first year 40, you're saving the second year 20, and then the third year so over the 3-year span, on paper, you're saving $60,000. That's your point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
To his point, there's no reason aside from,
Unless there's a penalty involved or something else.
But we have 3 years.
We have 3 years, yeah, but I'm not gonna be able to do the joint maintenance for 3 years.
but you're not
okay,
gonna be able to do joint maintenance
at
either way.
all.
Your
I mean, how
75,000
do
is
you-
counted for
How
either
does
way.
it come back?
It actually would
Because
give
I
you-
get an extra 2.5% next year.
But
Everybody gets 2.5%.
but 61,000 of that is going to this option.
What you're saying though, Eric, is, and Matt, if we decide to go on the 30, 30, 30, 30, whatever, 33, 30, so we're paying $20,000. This year, we only pay, out of the 61, we're paying 20,000, which means $40,000 of that could go towards the deficit. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. But you're kicking the can down the road.
I don't think you are though, and I was actually on your
are.
board, but the way he phrased it, I think he's correct in that.
There's no savings. You're just moving it down the road.
But
No, but
You're not,
again, that's
though.
the point that Eric is making, is
it's
this.
the employee who's
If
losing
there's
out.
no penalty, and you're allowed to pay 20,250 this year, then you're saving 40,000. Now, next year, you're not paying interest on the 40,000, you're just increasing it by another 20,000, so you're saving $20,000 next year. And then on the third year, that's when when they're fully impacted with $60,000.
Going forward.
Here's the difference, though. The reason that I brought it up before, where you're gonna take it and do 50% this year and 50% next year, was because we could reduce the amount of our deficit. However, we have funds in free cash to offset the deficit, and we have other funds available elsewhere that if we ran into a shortfall, we have funds available elsewhere that we could use to offset anything that we run into an issue with. So then the question is, the employee is the one who's losing out, okay? So we're not gonna lose by not paying the employees. We're not losing, right? Right?
Well,
We're not losing.
It all depends
So
on
the
how
only
you
thing
look
that,
at
the
it.
only thing that we're really losing is the amount of money that we're gonna pay our employees. So then that
Yes.
begs the question, do we make our employees whole? Because for the past X number of years, they have been not being paid equally. So are we going to make the choice as a town to make them whole now, immediately? And use the funds that we have available? Or are we going to take the 3 years that are available and do it a third, or take 2 years, or whatever that is? Now, for me, the ideal thing to do is make them whole immediately if we have the funds available to do it and have the ability to do so. If we don't have the ability to do so, then it's beyond our scope and we have to make the hard choice and say, no, we can't do it, and we have to take the time that we're allowed to do it. But if we have the ability to do it, then we have to do, in my mind, we have to do the right thing and take care of our employees and make them whole as soon as we can.
All right, I'm
That's my opinion.
gonna call a vote on this, unless I think everyone's had a chance.
Well, I just passed out the right chart, almost right chart. Because the fire department cylinders, they should be over in the reserve fund. So the remaining balance of the free cash should be 95,706. And the remaining reserve fund should be reduced by 20 or 53,086. So we would have 95,000 remaining in free cash. And we might not have to spend the 20,000 in cylinders anyway if the fire department gets the grant.
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna call a vote.
Okay.
All in favor of option one, that is paying the full amount of $61,365.17, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? You're abstaining? I have
I'm
that
gonna
from
abstain.
either one.
I actually don't actually have a clue right now.
Eric?
So, I mean, I apologize, I'm kind of new to this board, so we can dip into free cash to
Yes.
balance the budget.
Yes.
I think it's more of an ethical question than anything at this point, but it's, to your point, it's,
Discussion's over,
Oh, sorry.
we're doing the vote.
my
Sorry.
apologies. This is why I stay in the corner quiet.
No, your opinion's highly valued, but at the right time. Eric, same thing for you, you have to choose door number 1, 2, or 3.
I'm too new for this. I'm gonna have to abstain too.
Okay, we vote for recommendation, 3 votes for, 2 abstentions. Option 1. And my only reason for calling for the vote is we could have gone around and around with this,
Yeah.
and
We gotta, all right, so where are we now, Mike?
snow and ice.
Wait,
Is it over yet? No snow. No more.
It was so close. And all that snow came. It was so close.
We wouldn't be having these discussions if the snow didn't come.
Last didn't occur, would be fine.
And I didn't mean to, it's just that.
No,
we
no,
never
no, no,
really-
no, no, I agree. I mean, I'm gonna be thinking about this for days.
Mike, I think we may have to have another meeting before, unless we wanna stay here till 10:30.
I have to get up at 5.
Uh,
Well, let me, while you're doing that, Mike,
Great.
Monday, to wrap this up,
Monday.
I have no idea what Monday.
Guys,
What's
Monday?
Monday?
I could do Monday.
Matt,
The selectmen have a
we can go in the dungeon.
meeting.
I mean, we have to do this. That's my only point.
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to picture what's on the goddamn calendar.
When do we have to be done by?
We gotta be done by Tuesday.
Oh,
Well, no, that was for the
The warrant article.
warrant. We have to post the warrant, which includes the budget article, on the 19th of April.
I thought that was, in here he said 35 days before the election.
That's for the
Ballot question.
ballot.
I don't even know what I wrote that.
Well,
It's really-
Warrant, technically, but then you have to have your budget book ready to go.
So, we're better off doing it sooner than later.
Yeah, if you meet next Wednesday, that's gotta be it.
how many days' notice do we have to have before a meeting? 48?
48 hours. We got
48
Oh,
hours.
48 hours.
Yeah.
Oh.
Posted
So we
Monday.
could do it next Wednesday. Post it Monday, do it next Wednesday. Why don't we, Mike, what was it that you wanted to bring up next?
Well, if you use $80,000, $262, we're balanced.
Of free cash?
Yeah, you use 80,
Can you give us,
and you still have about $10,000 in free cash left.
could you,
Wait,
give
I
us
thought-
that on a spreadsheet next Wednesday?
Wait, I thought there was only 75. What am I missing here?
No, I.
Change it
95.
to 95.
Move the cylinders over.
Move the cylinders over
Oh,
to
I missed
reserve
that.
fund.
I
Yeah.
apologize.
So, Mike, your time spent on doing the town assessment, just curious, what was the lowest the town's ever had at free cash at the end of a budget season?
Last year, it's $6,000.
6,000, okay.
Okay, in terms of, it's getting close to 9 o'clock. In terms of, what we'll do is we'll set up a meeting for next Wednesday, specifically to close the deficit
We just did.
officially.
Officially close the deficit.
Yes.
Good word.
And what else do we need to do?
Hope it doesn't snow again.
Yeah.
Well, why can't we do it now if we already know that that's...
I'd like to see it in writing.
Yeah, Mike needs to prepare the thing, so the numbers, so we can have a
It
number.
would be the official
The
posted
selectmen
numbers.
may make some changes too.
Right, so I mean, ta-da, and then
You just
we'll all
want to
be
see my
back together.
smiling face again on a Wednesday night,
Why
don't
don't we
you?
say we'll do it a week from today. Now,
Good.
there's people out there,
I'll be here.
and my concern is that you're here for a reason and I haven't broached the subject or I haven't brought anything up. I just wanna make sure that anybody that needed to say anything has the opportunity. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to speak about the hold on the proposed capital improvement expenditure for the pumper to replace engine 5. What we're looking to do is get approval at Springtown meeting to move forward to purchase a pump, which it probably would not be ordered until the fall. I think about 6 to 9 months.
Right.
So we wouldn't be looking for delivery until probably July 1st, so the lease payment would go into fiscal year 20. So looking to have the committee and also the selectmen to approve, to put that on the warrant to be voted on at Springtown meeting.
Mike, how will we, how do you want us to approach that? We did speak about it last week.
Well, that's something, I mean, if the selectmen determine that it's gonna be on the warrant, then on Wednesday you can advise.
Okay, so, the ball's in your court.
I understand they're in desperate need of fire trucks, but in light of the selectmen talking about, that pumper and other things in this town, the school has things, police have things, somebody else, Peter's probably got something too, that, somebody gotta put together that plan for that, what's going down the road, because I look at that $77,000, and I don't know how many years we sat there and scraped together, we were dealing with it at the end of the year for the ladder truck. So if it's gonna be, I don't want it to turn into a ladder truck, I want the things to show up funded.
It's gonna have to be in the fire department budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's gotta be funded,
Mhm.
because that ladder just drove us nuts.
Every year we were looking for $77,000, and most of the time it came out of.
Comes out of the stabilization, it hasn't gone back into the stabilization fund. Reggie's probably up there on the hill now, jumping off the couch, but
That was always his issue.
that was always his issue, right? I just,
And I just wanted to follow up with Wayne, and going forward, you know, getting approval at Springtown meeting, start paying for it in fiscal year 20. By the time we're done paying for it, that pumper, we have to replace the other pumper.
Oh, no,
And then we've got the ladder truck to
yeah,
also.
you need 2 fire trucks in the next 5 years.
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
So, you know, that's part of that planning
No,
process.
but that's the point Wayne is making, that everything has to be done in a comprehensive manner, that we just can't pick these things
Sure.
anymore.
Yep.
It has to be, we have to have a strategy on a go-forward
Mhm.
basis.
Yep.
Called a capital
All right.
override.
I'm ready to go home.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Well, first of all, I wanna thank everyone for coming here.
I'm gonna make the
You've
I'm going to
given
sleep
us
right here.
a lot of good
That's what I
questions
heard.
and a lot of good insights, so we appreciate that. And we also appreciate the jobs that you do day in, day out, because you don't always get credit for it. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting's over. Thank you very much.